Everyone talks about flashy skills, step-overs, and goals. But if you actually want to control a game, dominate it, you need to understand what happens in between the highlights. And nobody does that better than Pedri. In this video, I'm going to break down how to actually dominate midfield like Pedri. Not just what he does, but how you can start doing it yourself, even if you're not playing at an elite level. Because the truth is, Pedri isn't dominating with speed. He's not dominating with strength. He's dominating with something way more powerful: awareness, positioning, and decision-making. So if you've ever felt like you're running around the pitch, but not really influencing the game, this is the video that's going to change that. Let's get into it. Before we talk about passing or dribbling or pressing, we need to talk about the thing that makes all of those things possible. And that thing is called game reading. Game reading is simply the ability to understand what is happening around you on the pitch, where your teammates are, where the opposition is, where the space is, and what is likely to happen next, faster and more accurately than anyone else. Pedri is elite at this, not because he was born with it, but because he has spent thousands of hours training it. Here is a simple way to think about it. When you're a young player and the ball comes to you, your process usually looks like this. The ball arrives, you look up, you see your options, you decide, you pass or dribble. That whole process might take 2 or 3 seconds. When Pedri receives the ball, that process looks completely different. By the time the ball is traveling towards him, he has already scanned the pitch. He has already seen where his options are. He has already made a decision. So when the ball arrives, he takes one touch and plays it immediately. The whole process takes maybe half a second. That difference, 2 or 3 seconds versus half a second, is the difference between getting pressed and losing the ball or playing quickly and keeping possession. So how do you train this? The answer is scanning. Scanning means actively looking around you before the ball arrives. Not once, not twice, constantly. Every time you're about to receive the ball, you should have already turned your head left, right, and behind you to get a picture of what is around you. This is called a pre-scan, and it is the single most impactful thing a young midfielder can add to their game. Johan Cruyff used to say that being a good footballer is largely about seeing the game clearly. Xavi, who played with Pedri at Barcelona and later coached him, has said that Pedri's scanning and awareness are at a level he has seen in very few players in his entire career. Try this in your next training session. Every time you're going to receive the ball, make a deliberate scan of the pitch around you before it arrives. Do it even when you think you don't need to. Turn it into a habit. After a few weeks, you will start to notice that the game slows down for you. Situations that used to feel chaotic will start to feel manageable because you already have a picture of what is around you before the pressure arrives. This is foundation number 1. Everything else Pedri does is built on top of it. Now let's talk about positioning, because this is where most midfielders at every level make their biggest mistakes. Watch a typical youth or amateur midfielder in a game. When their team has the ball, they are often standing still. They are watching the play unfold. They are waiting for someone to pass to them. And the result is that they either never get the ball, or when they do get it, there are defenders immediately around them because they were static and easy to mark. Now watch Pedri. He is constantly moving, not sprinting, not charging around wasting energy, but constantly making small, intelligent adjustments. A step to the left to create a passing lane, a step back to give himself space from the defender behind him, a slight curve in his run to receive the ball on his stronger foot. These small movements have a name in football tactics. They are called positional adjustments, and they're the reason why Pedri almost always seems to have half a meter of space when he received the ball. He manufactured that space himself with movement before the ball arrived. There's a concept in modern football called the half space. If you divide the pitch into 5 vertical channels, the 2 wide channels on each side, 2 half spaces just inside them, and a central channel. The half spaces are where Pedri operates most dangerously. They're the zones between the opposition's wide midfielder and central midfielder, or between the fullback and central defender. These are the spaces that are hardest for opposition teams to defend, because no single defender is responsible for them. Pedri gravitates towards these zones instinctively. When Barcelona are building play from the back, He often drops into the half space to give the center backs a passing option. When Barcelona are in the final third, he drifts into the half space to receive between the lines, meaning he gets the ball between the opposition's midfield and defensive lines, where he can face goal and directly threaten. How do you apply this? Start by understanding the half spaces on your own pitch. They exist at every level of football. When your team has the ball, instead of standing in the middle of the pitch waiting, try moving into the half space. Create the angle for your teammate to pass to you. Make yourself available between the lines rather than in front of them. The other key positional habit Pedri has is that he always tries to receive the ball on the half turn. This means positioning his body so that when the ball arrives, he is not facing directly toward his own goal or directly toward the opposition goal, but at an angle between the two. This means he can see both options. He can play back if there is pressure. He can play forward if there is space. He has full information. A player who receives the ball facing their own goal has to turn before they can attack. A player who receives on the half turn can already go forward. This sounds like a tiny detail. It isn't. It changes everything. Most videos about Pedri focus entirely on his attacking play, but one of the most underrated parts of his game, and one of the most important things you can steal from him, is how he defends. Pedri is not a defensive midfielder. He is not the player who physically blocks everything, wins every header, and launches into every tackle. But he is extraordinarily effective at winning the ball back for his team because he doesn't defend with his legs first. He defends with his brain first. Here is what this looks like in practice. When Barcelona lose the ball, Pedri does not sprint randomly towards the player with the ball. Instead, he does three things very quickly. First, he identifies the nearest passing option for the player on the ball. Second, he moves to close off that passing option, or at least make it harder to reach. Third, he applies what is called a pressing trap, which is positioning his body in a way that forces the opposition player into a predictable direction, usually towards the sideline or towards a teammate who is ready to win the ball. This type of pressing is called intelligent pressing, and it is fundamentally different from what most youth players do, which is just chase the ball. Chasing the ball without a plan is exhausting and almost always ineffective. You run 20 meters, you don't win the ball, you're now out of position, and you're tired. Intelligent pressing is calculated. You're not trying to win the ball yourself every time. You're trying to reduce the options of the player on the ball and force them into making a bad decision or playing the ball to somewhere your team can win it. There is a stat that is often cited about Pedri's pressing work at Barcelona. In his debut season, he covered more distance than almost any other midfielder in La Liga, despite being one of the physically lighter players in the division. That tells you something important. The distance wasn't wasted. Every meter he ran had a purpose. To apply this to your own game, start thinking about defensive positioning differently. When you lose the ball, your first question shouldn't be, how do I get the ball back? Your first question should be, what is the most dangerous passing option my opponent has? And how do I make that harder? If you can cut off passing lanes with your positioning, you force mistakes without having to sprint yourself into the ground. That is exactly what Pedri does. That is why, despite his size and weight, he is considered one of the best pressing midfielders in world football. One more thing on defending. Pedri times his tackles brilliantly. He rarely goes to ground. He rarely stretches for the ball and misses. He waits. He shows patience. He lets the attacker get close, waits for the moment the ball moves slightly away from their foot, and then he nicks it cleanly. Clean tackling with patience is far more effective than aggressive lunging, which would just get you beaten and leave you on the floor. Here is something that confuses people about Pedri. When you watch him play, a lot of his passes look simple. Short, neat, nothing spectacular. And people sometimes say, well, I can do that. But they can't. Because the reason those passes look simple is because Pedri has already done all the hard work in his positioning, in his scanning, in his body shape, before the ball even arrives. By the time he passes, the decision is so clear that the execution is easy. This is one of the most important ideas in football. Hard work before the ball arrives equals easy decisions after it arrives. Let's talk about his first touch. Pedri's first touch is consistently described by coaches as one of the best in world football. But what makes it special is not just that it is soft and controlled. It is that it is directional. His first touch almost always moves the ball in the direction he wants to play next. So if he receives the ball and he already knows he's going to pass to his left, his first touch opens his body and moves the ball slightly left, so his second touch, the pass, is already lined up. This is called a positive first touch or setup touch. Instead of just controlling the ball dead, you are using your first touch to prepare the next action. Practice this specifically. When you're doing passing drills in training, focus not just on controlling the ball, but on where your first touch goes. Always try to move the ball towards your next pass with your first touch. Now let's talk about the types of passes Pedri uses most. He rarely tries to play the killer through ball every single time he gets the ball. He understands that maintaining possession is itself a form of attacking. When there is no forward option available, he will happily play a simple square pass or even back to a defender. This is not being safe or boring. This is being intelligent. What Pedri is brilliant at is disguising his passes. He will shape his body as if he is about to pass right, and then at the last moment flick it left. He will look one way and pass another. This is extremely hard to defend against because defenders read body shapes. If your body shape doesn't give away your intention, defenders are always half a step late. You can practice disguise passing. In a rondo or any passing drill, make a deliberate habit of looking one way and passing another. It feels unnatural at first, but over time it becomes another weapon in your toolkit. Finally, and this is crucial for any midfielder who wants to play like Pedri, you need to be comfortable under pressure. When a defender is close to you, your natural instinct is to panic, to rush, to give the ball away cheaply. Pedri does the opposite. He slows down slightly. He uses his body to shield the ball. He buys himself a fraction of a second, and then he plays out of pressure cleanly. This comes from confidence in your technique, and that confidence only comes from repetition. Small-sided games, rondos, futsal, anything that puts you in tight spaces where you have to use your technique under pressure. Do more of that, and your composure on the ball will improve dramatically. All right, you have heard everything. Now, let's make it practical. Here is the truth about football development that most people don't like to hear. Watching videos like this one is the easy part. Understanding what Pedri does is the easy part. The hard part is going onto the pitch repeatedly, deliberately, consistently practicing these things until they become automatic. Because nothing in football becomes available to you in a real game unless you have already done it thousands of times in training. So here is a practical framework. 7 things. One for each aspect of Pedri's game we have talked about. The first is scanning. In every single training session, every single time you are about to receive the ball, turn your head and scan before the ball arrives. Make it a rule for yourself. If the ball is in the air coming towards you, your head should already have moved at least twice to check your surroundings. Do this every session until it is a reflex. The second is receiving on a half turn. Practice this in passing drills. When you set up to receive, angle your body so you can see forward options as well as the ball coming to you. Your shoulder should be pointed towards the pitch, not towards your own goal. The third is your first touch direction. Every time you control the ball in training, ask yourself, did my first touch set up my next action? Practice making your first touch purposeful, not just safe. The fourth is half-space movement. In small-sided games or during training matches, deliberately try to position yourself in the space between your opposition's lines. Ask your coach to point out where the half spaces are in your team's shape. Start to occupy them. The fifth is pressing with purpose. In training matches, instead of just chasing the ball when you lose it, try to identify the most dangerous pass your opponent can make and move to close it off. This will feel confusing at first. It will click eventually. The sixth is passing under pressure. Find a partner and do a rondo, or even just a basic passing drill where someone applies pressure. Practice slowing your movements slightly under pressure, shielding the ball with your body, and finding the pass cleanly. Being calm on the ball under pressure is a skill. Train it directly. The seventh is resetting mentally. Next time you make a mistake in a game or training, your rule is this. Within 10 seconds, You must have physically moved to a new position to help your team. Not sulking, not explaining yourself to teammates. Moving. That movement is your reset button. If you apply all 7 of these things consistently over one full season, your game will look completely different. Not because you became Pedri, but because you started thinking like a midfielder rather than just running around hoping the ball finds you. One more thing before we finish. There is a player who plays alongside Pedri at Barcelona right now. He is 18 years old, already considered one of the most exciting prospects in the history of football, Lamine Yamal. And one of the things that makes Yamal so effective as a winger is exactly the intelligence we have been talking about. Scanning, positioning, receiving in space, making fast decisions. These principles do not only apply to midfielders. They apply to every position. They apply to you wherever you play. Pedri once said in an interview that the most important moment in any play is the one before the ball arrives. Not the pass, not the dribble. The moment before, when you decide what you're going to do. That is the entire game in one sentence. The players who master the moment before the ball arrives are the players who control games. That is what Pedri does better than almost anyone alive. And now you know exactly how he does it and exactly how to start doing it yourself. Now go and train.